Tanse, I'm Mashkode. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. As the news of identifying Mashkode Bizhiki'ikwe as Ashlee Christine Shingoose continues to ripple across Manitoba and the country, her family is speaking to the public. Our TR Wheatley was at a press conference held by the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs late this morning and joins us in the newsroom now. TR, what was the mood like there this morning?
Yes, thanks, Creason. In a very intimate setting inside the Anishinaabe office in downtown Winnipeg, Ashlee Christine Shingoose's parents, Albert and Teresa Shingoose, spoke to a room full of reporters. Now, upon stepping up to the podium, Albert told everyone in the in the room that we all needed to smile and that we need to be happy. Now, this just goes to show the type of man Albert is. Amidst his years of anguish on searching for his daughter and dealing with that uncertainty, he's out there still worrying and trying to give to others. The family took the time to speak gently about their daughter, the mom saying how she admired how good of a parent Ashlee was. She said that Ashlee originally moved to Winnipeg because there was a shortage of housing in the remote fly-in community of St. Teresa Anishinaabe Nation in northeastern Manitoba. Now, to put some context to that, there's roughly about 300 homes to over 3,600 people there. So Ashlee, the mother of three, she was last seen on March 11, 2022. What we now know is that she was the first victim of a serial killer who is now serving a life sentence for her, Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, and Mercedes Myron. Now, at their own press conference yesterday, the police announced that they got new information from the serial killer that led them to finding Ashlee's DNA on a pair of pants from his apartment. Now, originally during court last summer, the only DNA that we heard about was that from Ashlee was on a cigarette, but police also announced they believe Ashlee's remains are in the city-owned Brady landfill south of the city. Manitoba's Premier Wab Kinew also announced they will lead the search at Brady, and all levels of government, including the Winnipeg Police, would assist. News that Albert also encourages.
We need youth. To make things, to make it move now, to get that landfill going.
She was a loving person. She wanted to look after her kids. When she came out with her kids, she went to women's shelter, because we had no place at our home. She wanted to watch her kids the best way she knows how.
Now, there was also leadership alongside the family, including the Assembly of First Nations National Chief. We will bring you a rundown of some of those First Nations leaders and more, their speeches as well as Ashlee's parents, and what they had to say tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern. Creason?
Thank you, TR. That's TR Wheatley reporting live from our newsroom in downtown Winnipeg. And if you are affected by these stories, supports are always available 24/7 through the MMIWG support line. That number is 1-844-413-6649. It's taken 13 years, but an Ontario Inquest jury has determined a First Nations man's death in 2012 in the Thunder Bay Correctional Centre was in fact a homicide. The finding comes after charges against a man were already previously stayed. 35-year-old Sherman Kirby Quizis from Niskandaga First Nation was just days away from being released before he got into an altercation with 19-year-old Adam Capay. At the time, Capay was charged with first-degree murder, but the charge was stayed after Capay spent more than 4 years in solitary confinement. Before the incident, Capay was being kept alone in a cell for 23 hours a day with the lights on. All of this resulted in Capay making national headlines. The inquest into the death began in February and concluded last Friday with the jury releasing 24 recommendations aimed at preventing a similar incident. Capay is currently in custody and expected to make his next court appearance in Dryden on April 14th for a number of unrelated assault and mischief charges after he was released. An inquest in Ontario is mandatory if there is a death in custody. Although the jury's conclusions are not binding, it is hoped that any recommendations suggested, if implemented, will prevent further deaths. Saskatchewan RCMP are investigating a recent death in Hatchet Lake Denisoland First Nation, located 550 kilometers northeast of Prince Albert. According to police, last Tuesday, just after 12 p.m., RCMP received a report of a man who was seriously injured near a home in Hatchet Lake. When they arrived, they found 24-year-old Gayton Josiuinen deceased. RCMP Major Crimes took over the investigation after they deemed his death suspicious. RCMP are now asking the people in Hatchet Lake to check their surveillance and dash cameras. They may have captured suspicious activity in the area on March 25th between 10:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. If anyone has information on this death, you are asked to contact police or Crime Stoppers. Hatchet Lake is a fly-in community during the summer and can be reached by ice road during the winter months. Work continues in the search for Indigenous children in unmarked burial sites at former residential schools. Residential school survivors recently met with researchers to find out the latest in the nationwide effort. As CTV's Stephanie Thomas reports, the event is about healing and justice.
Nearly 4 years ago, many communities across Canada grieved after learning more than 200 unmarked graves were believed to be identified outside the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. To this day, human remains have not been recovered. The nation now refers to the discovery as 215 anomalies, but the discovery sparked numerous other searches at residential school sites. Now, the National Advisory Committee on Residential Schools, Missing Children and Unmarked Burials is meeting in Calgary.
When we were young, we didn't realize just how devastating it was. And of course, our parents didn't share that with us.
Research specialists gathered with elders and survivors to share their stories. Many at the event have been personally affected.
We need our culture and our spiritual ways to give us that strength to continue on this journey.
Committee leaders say their work is Indigenous-led and rooted in traditional ceremony. Archival research, ground-penetrating radar, and forensic science are used in support of oral traditions by affected communities. While excavations continue at other sites, the general denial of unmarked grave sites is difficult for the community.
We know there are unmarked graves out there, and what we're really trying to do here is support communities to know the most effective ways they can use all of that knowledge to find, protect, commemorate those locations.
Other speakers say trauma caused by the residential school system persists to this day, even after operations closed nearly 3 decades ago.
This is still happening. This is still an important subject with our people. We see a lot of people who are affected that come through our doors.
This is the final knowledge sharing event hosted by the committee. Stephanie Thomas, CTV News, Calgary.
The National Indigenous Collaborative Housing Inc., or NICHI, announced a historic milestone on Wednesday. At a press conference in Ottawa, the organization says it has successfully distributed $275.2 million in federal funding to 74 Indigenous-led housing projects across the country. NICHI is a for Indigenous by Indigenous housing group with 92 member organizations. The money it is distributed comes from federal funding earmarked for Indigenous housing projects in urban, rural, and northern areas. John Gordon is the CEO of NICHI.
Because of NICHI's collaboration with its members and the Indigenous housing providers across this country, over 3,800 people will be able to access housing that wouldn't have been able to before. That success happened in 18 months. In some cases, projects have been completed in less than a year from when approved to when families receive their keys to their new home.
It's Thursday, and that means we have new previews of this week's Nation to Nation and APTN Investigates. We'll be right back. Welcome back. A strike of Métis CFS workers in Manitoba has people talking. While they fight for higher wages, the issues around funding within the CFS system are brought to light. APTN Sav Jonesa looks at some views on how CFS funding in Manitoba should be spent.
On Tuesday, more than 100 CFS workers with the Métis Child and Family Services Authority in Manitoba went on strike. They want wage parity, meaning the same pay as CFS workers employed by the provincial government. Kyle Ross is the president of the union.
These workers have the same education, they support the same types of families and types of individuals that need these supports, and we really think they should be paid the same as everybody else.
The striking workers are employed by two agencies governed by the Manitoba Métis Federation, Mashkode Child and Family Services and Métis Child and Family Community Services, or MCFCS. Their contracts expired 2 years ago in January 2023 and show social workers at bottom of scale earning between $24.58 and $36.28 an hour, depending on classification and agency.
With everything that's going on in the environment, with inflation, all these things, these workers are feeling those pinches.
But the strike doesn't fit right with Métis foster parent Rachel Willen. She's been working for MCFCS and other agencies as a caregiver to children for over 10 years. She says foster parents who provide 24/7 care are being overlooked in these discussions.
Totally undervalued. I mean, we're expected to look after a child for $25 a day, and that requires, transportation, medical, eye exam, clothing, food, snacks, lunches. That requires all of that, but yet a social worker gets, $27, $28, sometimes $32 an hour, and this is what we get a day.
It's been almost 13 years since the daily rates for the essential care of foster children in Manitoba were increased. The province now says they will increase those basic maintenance rates from 2012 by 10% come October 1st this year to around $24 and $34 a day, depending on age and location. Willen says any extra funding towards CFS in the province should be spent directly on kids in care and at-risk families to prevent apprehension.
There's no need for a salary increase when that money could be going to our families.
Sherry Gaunt, the Manitoba advocate for children and youth, says the basic maintenance rate increase is a good start for providing better care to kids, but not enough to meet inflation. She says a fix to the problem is spending more on keeping families together and out of foster homes.
Children deserve to be raised by their own families, and children deserve to know who they are and where they come from, and be able to identify with their own families rather than coming into foster care.
Kinship caregivers who provide care to family members in the system currently receive less than foster parent rates. Manitoba Families Minister Nahani Fontaine said in an emailed statement on March 7th that the province will be investing $10 million towards customary and kinship caregivers who provide care to those family members. The Manitoba Métis Federation laid off 63 workers about 2 weeks prior to the strike, citing lack of funding resulting from jurisdictional disputes between the province and federal government on who should pay. MMF Minister of Housing Will Goodon commented on the strike in an unrelated interview.
Minister Bjors and President Chartrand have made it clear on several occasions that at the end of the day it is the children and it is the families, and that's why we fought so hard to have our own authority and agencies to keep those kids in community, in family, and the funding, the fight over the funding is tough because I don't think anyone wants to see what's happening.
The CFS system has been plagued with troubles and criticism for years, but no matter where you think funding should go, the kids appear to be on everyone's mind.
And all these issues need to be addressed. It's not as simple as one or the other. I think we have to address them all if we really want to have a quality system and if we want to try and avoid the issues that come later if these families don't get the supports.
The strike will continue until a deal is reached. Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
It's Thursday, and that means Fraser Needham is here joining us from Ottawa to tell us what's ahead on Nation to Nation. Fraser?
Coming up after the evening news, Canadian voters go to the polls on April 28th. Pam Palmer of Toronto Metropolitan University is here to tell us how the campaign may play out for Indigenous voters. There are a number of initiatives in this election targeted at Indigenous voters. Susan Tarosian of Elections Canada drops by to tell us what they are. And veteran Anishinaabe journalist Duncan McHugh is also here to tell us about a new certificate program in Indigenous journalism at Carleton University. All this ahead on Nation to Nation.
Thank you, Fraser. Indigenous police forces across the country are battling soaring crime rates, a worsening drug crisis, and a funding model that doesn't recognize them as essential. Coming up this week on a special three-part series, Inside Policing, APTN Investigates heads to the front lines to find out the true cost of underfunding First Nations policing in Canada. Here's a preview.
In Ontario, the Anishinaabe Police Service, or APS, polices 16 First Nations. Some detachments serve multiple communities. Until recently, the APS detachment serving Netamazaga-Beg Nishnabeg was based in a different community, about 75 kilometers away, meaning it could take 45 minutes or more to respond to emergency calls here. And there have been many.
I absolutely understand why people are frustrated. I mean, there has not been enough police presence in this community.
2024 saw stabbings, home invasions, and out-of-town drug dealers moving into the territory. In November, the Band Council declared a state of emergency because of organized crime, addiction, and violence. Hence, the rush to move a detachment into the community.
You know, I don't feel like we are adequately serving our communities because we don't have enough bodies to work 24/7. It's not fair to the communities that we police, and it's not fair to the officers.
Duncan hopes to be part of the solution here. For almost 7 years, she has been patrolling with APS. But this is one of her first overnight shifts in Netamazaga-Beg Nishnabeg. She knows she'll mostly be meeting people in less than ideal circumstances. One of the night's first calls, a next of kin notification.
We're really sorry for your loss, okay? But we have some details to share with you.
Out of respect for the family, APTN Investigates did not film this interaction.
Are you here by yourself? Do you need victim services or anything?
And you can catch APTN Investigates Inside Policing Essential Service airing this Saturday on APTN. We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, you can go to www.aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. We now want to tell you about this week's third web poll question. Over on our website, we ask, do you think Indigenous-led initiatives within police services can lead to real change? Your answers are yes, no, or unsure. Go to our website at www.aptnnews.ca/polls to have your say. Howie Mandel recently hit the golden buzzer for a Mi'kmaq singer who gave an emotional performance about Canada's residential school system. That story when we come back. Stay with us.
On the east, Charlottetown 1, Fredericton 1. La Grande River -14, Nuujauak -9. Quebec City 2, Montreal 2. 4 in Toronto, Ottawa 3. Sudbury 3, Wawa -1. Churchill -27, God's Lake -18. -5 in Winnipeg, Princess Harbour -9. -1 in Estevan, North Battleford -3. -11 in La Ronge, Stony Rapids -24. Sunny and high level at -5, Fort Chipewyan -9. Edmonton -4, Calgary -3. Vancouver 9, Campbell River 11. Prince George 2, Smithers 8. 3 in Whitehorse, Watson Lake -3. -15 in Yellowknife, Fort Simpson -6. Fort McPherson -16, Inuvik -17. -25 in Baker Lake, Cambridge Bay -26. Arctic Bay -26. Iqaluit -15.
A Mi'kmaq singer performed an emotional song about residential schools on Canada's Got Talent. She performed her song called Buried Truth, and it resulted in a golden buzzer from Howie Mundell. 19-year-old Didi Austin was over the moon on getting the golden buzzer. It sends her directly to the semifinals with $25,000 up for grabs. The winner of the semifinals will also win $1 million. Austin is a member of the Abegwit First Nation on Prince Edward Island. The singer and songwriter began writing music when she was only 11 years old. Austin's great-grandmother's experience at the Shubenacadie Indian Residential School inspired her song, Buried Truth.
Oh my goodness, when I got the golden buzzer, it was like I got this big wave of emotions, and it was like almost like I felt my great-grandmother's presence with me, like to the max in that moment. And I felt this sense of pride. I felt this honorable, I don't even know. It was such an honor, and I was so humbled to be honored.
Great job, Didi. You make us all very proud. The 30th annual Snow Kings Winter Festival took the city of Yellowknife by storm, and it featured artwork by a local Indigenous carver. Festival goers have been out in droves to the Snow Castle on Yellowknife Bay, where they've enjoyed many events including dance parties, photo competitions, and even the 9th International Carving Symposium. John Saborin is a local Indigenous stone carver who took part in the symposium. He and co-carver Patricia Le Guin took 4 days to carve her piece titled The Phoenix, which won the Artist's Choice Award this year. Saborin explained why carving is an art form and it's important to Indigenous people.
I think it's a kind of a story to say that, you know, we represent the North here, we represent Yellowknife. We're here, and we've always been here, and we'll continue to be here. So this is kind of a stamp that I put on here, and Patricia put on here. So she's from Saskatoon, and I'm from Yellowknife, so it was kind of fun to do.
Awesome sculpture. Turning to some exciting news closer to home now. APTN Investigates is up for a record 5 nominations for this year's Canadian Screen Awards. The annual awards celebrate excellence in Canadian film, English language television, and digital media production. APTN Investigates nominations include Kenneth Jackson's Secrets of the Bay for Best Host or Interviewer of News or Information, as well as Tamara Pimentel and Josh Grummett's Beyond the Strip for Best News or Information segment. The award ceremony takes place May 30th to June 1st, and when we get the new results, we'll be sure to report it here. Congrats to our APTN Investigates team, and make sure to watch their latest episode of Part 1 of Deadly Force, an inside look at the police-involved deaths of 2024. Part 2 will air this Saturday. And that's your daytime newscast for this Thursday. Dennis Ward is back for your evening newscast and a new edition of Truth in Politics. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News Daytime, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again. Excellent.